I recently got the chance to stay at the Inn at 500, located in the heart of downtown Boise. With complimentary drinks at check-in and spacious luxe penthouses and suites, it's an ideal spot for celebrations and your visitors. It was the perfect place for me and my husband to sneak away for a little staycation. We loved the cozy fireplace in our room and the balcony with gorgeous views of the city skyline, where we shared coffee in the morning. Ready to plan an unforgettable Boise stay? Book now at innat500.com. Today on CityCast Boise, the legislature recently revamped the public defender system in our state, which led to a flurry of resignations from experienced attorneys. Now, there's concerns that Idahoans might end up sitting in jail longer than they should, waiting for representation. Will the newly formed state public defender's office be able to hire enough new lawyers to defend our constitutional rights? It's Monday, November 18th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is Idaho Report's journalist Ruth Brown. Thanks for coming on the podcast today, Ruth.
Thanks for having me.
Before we can really dive into what's going on with public defenders in Idaho, I want everyone to, understand the history, how we got here, what's led to the issues we're seeing now. In the 2024 legislative session, the Idaho legislature made significant changes to the public defender's office. What were these changes? What did they change?
Sure. So this has been an ongoing transition for actually a couple of years, a couple sessions. In the past, public defense has been paid for by the counties. There's 44 counties in Idaho, and only 12 counties have in-house public defense, meaning an office where they're county employees. Everybody else, every other county had contracted attorneys in that county helping whoever needed public defense. The change in public defense came after the ACLU lawsuit, which found significant deficiencies in Idaho's public defense system. There were overburdened public defenders handling too many cases, indigent defense who had little access to their attorneys. The attorneys were unprepared because they had significant caseload. So something had to change. The state was aware of this. So rather than it being a county-by-county public defense system, it is now a statewide public defense system, meaning every employee that is a public defender is a state employee or they have a contract with the state. This sort of formalizes how much those individuals are getting paid, and it formalizes, I guess, which systems they're using, how much time they spend with defendants. Theoretically, I mean, it's only been in place since October 1st, so I think they're still trying to get a handle on that. That was the theory. And it's been an ongoing process, I will say, and we can get into that.
Yes. Oh, we're definitely going to touch on that because there have been some hiccups, to say the least. And so now just to clarify, so individual counties had to pay for public defense before, or had to keep those systems running, the ones that could afford it or contract out. So now we have just this entire statewide organization, correct?
Correct.
And a major issue with the old system that you brought up was funding and also pay for these attorneys. Did the legislature address that?
I think they would say yes and no. So it depends on how you look at it. Because every employee is now a new state employee, the only way to address their salaries was to look at length of service. That was the only fair, equitable way that the state felt they had to address. Not every attorney has the same skills that others might have. There are some attorneys, especially those in eastern Idaho, that are getting a significant pay bump coming into this because their county commissioners weren't paying them that much. They were working at what I think arguably you could argue is a true public service. Like, they could definitely make more in private practice. This is a real public service. So some attorneys are getting a significant pay bump. There are others in larger counties that are getting a significant decrease. And so we are seeing some of those experienced attorneys leave.
So with this change in pay throughout the state, do we have hard numbers on how many attorneys have left or are no longer practicing in public defense?
As of October 1st, we have about 276 employees and 26 open positions in the state's 12 county-based public defense offices. However, We do not know how many of those 276 attorneys are the same attorneys that have always been public defenders. I don't have the list, the breakdown of how many of those attorneys are longtime experienced attorneys, how many of them might be new attorneys. But in Ada, Kootenai, and Canyon particularly, there was a significant number of longtime attorneys who just left.
So with this kind of change up, with a significant number of attorneys leaving, potentially less experienced attorneys being hired, does the state public defender's office have enough attorneys to adequately meet the demand for defense attorneys throughout the state?
I think it's too early to tell. I have heard from attorneys who are hesitant to go on record. I've heard from judges that are concerned about whether this will be an adequate system. What I do know is that, in late September, Eric Frederickson, the new state public defender, said he had zero concerns and that he was confident they would be able to do this, even if they didn't have the in-house public defenders. They would be able to find contracted attorneys would mean private practice attorneys who also are picking up some public defense cases, and the state will pay them for that at the set rate.
And previous to this overhaul, changing of the system by the legislature, there was a discrepancy between urban counties that could afford a public defender's office and the rural counties that couldn't. Have these changes addressed that imbalance for these rural counties?
We do know that the state public defender's office has already put out its budget for the next year, in which case it plans to put more in-house public defense offices. They want to put public defense offices in Elmore, Jerome, Benoit, and Shoshone counties, as well as they've requested additional full-time employees and additional funding. They were only given $49 million by the legislature. So I know there are attorneys that testified that asked for twice as much. They asked for more like $80 million, and they were given $49 million. The issue around pay for the attorneys and paying them what they're worth, to Eric Frederickson's credit, the new state public defender, I think he can only pay them what the legislature has given them. He doesn't have this endless cash pot to pay everybody what they're worth. I think if he had his way, he would probably pay them all more. What we do know is that in January, the legislature will come back. They're looking for a budget that does have at least 4 more in-house public defense offices, and I suspect they will look at the salaries around that.
Are you ready to get into the holiday spirit? Martiniinthemorning.com is a Boise-based internet radio station that's bringing you the timeless sounds of the great American songbook, like Frank Sinatra and Louis Armstrong. For my family's favorite holiday traditions, like driving around Boise, looking at the lights and sipping cocoa, I want a station that plays the same festive songs I remember from my own childhood. My new go-to station is Martini in the Morning. Martiniinthemorning.com is owned by a family with deep Idaho roots and has been filling your days with the coolest, swinginest, and most romantic music. And this holiday season, they're turning up the cheer with their annual holiday music poll. You can customize your holiday soundtrack by voting for your favorite Christmas classics. Then tune in over Thanksgiving weekend as they count down the top 100 songs chosen by listeners like you. It's the perfect festive soundtrack you've been craving. Click the link in our description, enter the username and password provided to start streaming ad-free today.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
So, Ruth, we lightly touched on that there have been some hiccups with this new system. What are some of the issues or maybe road bumps that people have run into or attorneys have run into switching over to a state public defender's office?
So I think number one, it's just a massive change, right? Attorneys are used to doing things the way that they do them, especially the contract attorneys, where they don't have to report to anyone necessarily. But I think Eric Frederickson would argue that that's the point, is that they want to have a more unified system. Other issues, I think judges have had concerns about trial. For example, they took over on October 1, and if there's a trial set for October 2, is your new state attorney going to be prepared for that? If it's a different attorney, if it's an attorney that did not sign on for the state public defender's office. So theoretically, you could have people sitting in jail longer, waiting for trial. I know Mia Maldonado over at the Idaho Capital Sun has done some great reporting. She reported on an issue over in Owyhee County, I believe, but there have also been several, meaning a lot, of contract attorneys who did not sign on to be with the state public defender's office. And so when they don't do that, they have to withdraw from the case. They withdraw as counsel. One Elmore County attorney that I spoke with said that judges do have the option of not allowing an attorney to withdraw, and the state bar put out a ethical report, I suppose, an ethical opinion on withdrawing from cases. Over in Elmore, the judges have been forcing the attorneys to stay on until that defendant's appellate period is over. Defendants have 30 days to appeal a judge's decision, but that's just one county. Again, there's 44 counties. It's a massive state. So those are a few of the issues.
Have there been any concerns that people in these rural counties, or potentially even the urban counties where fewer public defense attorneys have stayed on, that there's been any concerns about adequate representation or people not having access to that?
I think folks are mostly worried about those very experienced attorneys have left because they were looking at significant pay cuts, particularly in Ada and Kootenai County. I think that's not something that you can, blame Eric Frederickson for. He only has so much money that the legislature gave him. But by losing someone with 20 years of experience and someone who is certified in death penalty cases, someone who's practiced and has been through many trials, many felony trials, those are complicated issues that not every attorney is prepared to do. It takes experience. So I think there are a lot of concerns around that, around who the new attorneys are. Again, though, I think there are many contract attorneys and many counties where the defense attorneys have stayed on and they've signed on with the state and they've gotten a raise. So it's not all bad, but I think there are areas of the state where issues could arise. And that is problematic because no matter where you committed a crime, everyone has a Sixth Amendment right and everyone should have adequate representation. And no one should be sitting in jail longer than what is necessary. So
absolutely. Yeah. Whether you can pay for it or not. And, regardless of what you can afford, you should have adequate representation. And Ruth, the court system can get pretty congested. Has this switch and change to the state public defender's office impacted the court systems in Idaho?
I think there have been a significant number of attorneys withdrawing from cases. These are attorneys that did not sign on to be a contract attorney or another in-house attorney. That in itself could create delays. All of the files need to be immediately transferred to the new representation, and the Idaho State Bar made it clear that was the attorney's responsibility, that if you're going to leave a defendant, you cannot just jump ship. So that in itself could create delays. I think it's early to tell whether or not what some of these changeovers will look like, but I think there are concerns, and that was one of the major concerns that Eric Frederickson expressed to me, is that if attorneys don't choose to stay, they need to be responsibly transfer over their files, responsibly handed over to a new attorney. But I mean, if it's a major felony case, that can be complicated. It can take a minute for attorneys to get caught up on what's happening and the details of the cases. So especially cases that are going to trial. So it's a massive change.
And with your investigation and reporting more about this and reporting about this, what should people know? It seems like it's a new system. There's lots of moving parts. There's lots of things that could be complicated. What are the main takeaways that people should know about this new system and how it's functioning in the state?
I think it is new. So there is a period of time where there will be hiccups. However, I think it's also clear that in some of the major counties that have major caseloads, some of the experienced attorneys, very experienced attorneys, have left because the state could not pay them. I mean, if you're looking at a 10, 20, 30% pay cut, everybody's got to pay their mortgage. That's a significant cut. So that in itself creates the issue where you may not have as experienced of attorney. However, there are smaller counties where attorneys are getting a pay raise, and that could be beneficial.
Thank you so much. Ruth, I really appreciate you coming on here. I've heard lots of people talking about this, some concern about this, and I know it's a new system. There's, it's a busy time of year. So I really appreciate you breaking this down and getting our listeners more information about this change and what it means for our area.
Sure. I hope that was helpful.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoy the show, we would love it if you would tell a friend about us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the best ways to channel your energy into getting involved in our community. See you then.